Hello, everybody. It is November the 6th, and we have got the most amazing show for you today. My name is Brian Friedman. I am the host of The View from the Top. Today, we're going to be meeting the mobility entrepreneurs. We're going to be talking to two awesome individuals who quit the corporate rat race and have set up their own relocation businesses. We've got Jeremy Chandar and Robert Brezosky. And it's going to be a fascinating show, especially for anybody who's ever dreamed or just wondered about how you go about setting up your own business. But more than that, what a week we've had. I mean, we've had in the UK, we've had probably one of the most, if not the most significant budget for non-DOMs and for expats in many years. We've had the catastrophic floods in Valencia and in Spain, and we're going to be covering that. We've got an immigration update as ever. And of course, we've had the small matter of the US election. So much to talk about. But you know how it works, everybody. Please join in the conversation. Tell us who you are, where you are, right in the comments box. We've got so much to talk about today. We are live. We are live on YouTube. We are live on LinkedIn. And also, if you want to listen to us as a podcast, we are also available on Spotify. So wherever you get your podcast, or go to Spotify, you can find us there. But as I said, if you want to watch us, watch the video, then we're on LinkedIn, we're on YouTube, and indeed from tomorrow, once this has been recorded, we're also available on the Benevo website. Not only is it fun, not only are we going to be talking about all sorts of things, you can also get CPE codes. So whether you want your CPE codes from ERC, from SHRM, or from HRCI, these are the credits that you might want. And we'll leave those up there for a moment or two. And we give a special shout out to our good friends at ERC for giving us the codes for the GMS and CRP for their CPE credits. And to our good friends at Rocket Mortgage, who help us get the credits for HRCI and for SHRM. So those are there. We'll leave them up there for a moment or two. Next week, we're going to be talking about project mobility, which is a really interesting subject to talk about. So that's next week. But what about the last 7 days? I mean, I've mentioned some of the breaking news around the world, but what about the breaking news actually in our own little industry itself? Let's see what's been going on in the last 7 days in the wonderful world of global mobility. So there we have it. That's all the breaking news in our industry. Congratulations to everyone who's got a new job in the last 7 days, everyone who's been promoted in the last 7 days. Congratulations to all the Emma's winners, especially big congratulations to Nikolai Wassman, who won the Outstanding Contribution to Global Mobility, to Chris Henry, who won Global Mobility Professional of the Year, and to Ashton Porter, who won Global Mobility's Rising Star. So congratulations to all of you. And I'll give a personal shout out, as I am, is that I'm delighted to say that this is personal, is that my cousin, Laura Friedman, just won the election last night and is now going to be as a member of Congress representing her district in California. So super excited for her. That election has been called. So congratulations to Laura Friedman. Anyway, moving on, I'm now going to bring on the wonderful Julia Onslow Cole to tell us a little bit about what's going on in the wonderful world of immigration. So everybody, you know how it works. Hit the heart button, hit the like button, hit the applause button, and let's say a big welcome to Julia Onslow Cole. Hey,
Hi, Brian.
How are you doing? Now, I know obviously US immigration is a big topic. I know we're going to be talking about that another time, but we're going to be talking about Europe today. So tell us a bit about that.
Yeah. So tomorrow, actually, just giving a bit of a shout out for GME. We've got the GME conference tomorrow, and we're doing a panel at the conference on what's happening around the world on elections. Our partner Eddie Rahl is flown in from Washington, going to talk about what's happening in the US, and obviously we're going to talk about that in the show in the upcoming few weeks. But I wanted to talk today about what's happening with European immigration policy, and our partner Christine Sullivan, she will be talking about this tomorrow. But I just wanted to give my 4 minutes today to just tell everybody what's going on. The thing is that we've talked a lot about heightened geopolitical risk, and one of the things that we've seen a lot in the geopolitical risk is obviously the wars in the Middle East, the Ukraine, the supply chain issues, but particularly elections. And we've talked about this right from the beginning of the year. This was the year of the election. We've had such surprising results. When we get to the end of the year, we're going to do a really good look back and see, but such surprising results and such challenging situations left by elections. Now, what's happened in Europe is that we saw in the summer this big swing to the far right in the European Parliament. And for those outside Europe, remember, the European Parliament is one of the 4 big institutions of the EU, and over 700 members sit directly from countries in the EU, which is 27 countries. And because of this far right swing, Macron, the president of France, held a snap French election. The first time it went to the right, the second to the left, and then he sort of made this compromise by appointing a prime minister called Michel Barnier, who those in the UK will remember from Brexit. He's the prime minister in France, and he and Macron are kind of disagreeing about quite a few things, including a budget. And it's creating a lot of instability in France. France doesn't have a history of coalition parties, but it's generally not going well, not a good, stable landscape for making immigration policy. If you actually look around as well and you pick, for example, Austria, that's another country where it swung to the far right, but there wasn't enough of a win to make an outright leader of the far right. And in the end, after a lot of discussion back and forth, there's a coalition party in Austria, and actually the leader of the far right party is not the prime minister. And again, this pattern has been really repeated all over Europe for the elections, and there's been massive delays between election results and forming coalition parties. I think in Belgium it was over 6 months. In the Netherlands it was over 6 months. And so there's really, in this, 5 key takeaways that I just want you to take away from today. The first thing is that there is strong anti-immigration rhetoric right across Europe because of all the wins of these far-right parties. It's strongly anti-immigration. The second is that there's a big attack on the Schengen area. This is the vaguely, it's the area around these 27 countries. It means that within them, there's quite a lot of freedom of movement, but this has been attacked. And a number of countries such as Germany and Poland are suggesting that they can put up their own borders. So this affects your mobility of people in that area. The third point to remember is because of all of this uncertainty, because of all of the different coalition parties, because of the uncertainty of these far-right parties not being able to take an outright win, it means policy is very hard to make. And that means that it's difficult to get changes through. The fourth thing to say is the economy is impacted. If you look at the global economy, the economy in Europe is poor. It's poorly performing. And all of these election changes are impacting the economy further. Plus the fact, and we've been talking about this in previous programs, about all of the digital borders that we're seeing being erected, digital borders within countries, around countries, and we've been talking about the electronic position for the visas from the UK. So all these different digital themes, this means that compliance is more strong and movement's difficult. But the final takeaway, my fifth takeaway, is you shouldn't be afraid as a business to speak out. And a fantastic example this year has been this company called ASML, which is one of the largest companies to make semiconductor equipment. In fact, I think it's the largest company in the Netherlands. And after the far-right win in the Netherlands, they spoke out against taxes, saying, you know, they were not happy with the taxes, and these were changed. And then similar changes were put in Germany. So companies do have a voice, and it's really important to speak out in these very unsettled times.
Okay, Julia, thank you so much for that. And that wrapped up the changing geopolitical nature of what's going on in Europe in 4 minutes, which was quite extraordinary tour de force. And as Richard Majewski said, fascinating, Julia. Thank you. So we are now going to have to move on because we're going to be talking about tax. And there's been a very, very significant development both in the UK and, of course, there's the smaller matter of the US election. So everybody, you know how it works. Hit the heart button, hit the like button, hit the applause button, and let's say thank you to Julia Onzo-Cole and bring onto our stage Julie Barron and Ben van den Dong from Vialto Partners. Hi, Ben. Hi, Julie. So,
hello, Brian.
Julie, let's just start off. I know we're going to be talking mainly about the UK and the budget, but give us your couple of cents on last night.
Well, yep, we have a new president. So it looks like we have a Republican president and we're going to have a Republican Senate, but the House is yet to be determined. So hopefully in the next week or so, we'll know more about the House. And that's really going to drive what happens with tax policy, because if the Republicans also take the House, then they'll be able to push through the Trump agenda. If the Republicans don't take the House and the Democrats have the House, then there'll have to be more concessions and they'll have to come somewhere in the middle. So we will see, but more to come on that.
Okay, so let's move on to talk about the rather significant budget there was in the UK the other day.
Brill. Thank you, Brian, and thanks for having me. I think, as you sort of noted at the start, we were expecting a sort of once-in-a-lifetime budget, certainly from a tax and expat perspective, and it certainly didn't disappoint. There's a whole raft of changes in there, which we won't be able to get through all today. But certainly, the government's stated aim was to sort of raise taxes to increase public spending and fill the black hole that they inherited, and they're intending to raise 40 billion from these measures. So it's going to be fairly drastic, and we're going to see lots of action in this area coming up. So I'll kick off just with a run through of some of the domestic rules, and I think the headline for most of our employers on today's webcast is going to be the raise in national insurance for employers. So that's a 1.2% raise, going from 13.8% to 15%, coming into effect from April 2025. Alongside that, they've also dropped the secondary NIC threshold. So that's essentially the threshold that employers will start paying national insurance, and they've dropped that down from 9,100 down to £5,000. So that's going to be a big change for employers. I mean, putting that just into some numbers around that, if we look at someone earning £100,000, it's going to be roughly a 2,300 raise sort of on the employer NIC bill from April 2025. So certainly something to watch out for. Alongside that, there are a couple of notices around payroll changes. The government are expecting all benefits to be payrolled, aside from loans and living accommodation, from April 2026. And they have said that they're going to develop some solutions for mobile employees. What that looks like, we don't know yet, and how effective they'll be, we're not sure. Alongside that, there are a couple of changes to capital gains tax. So there's an immediate raise from 10% to 18% for basic rate taxpayers, and a raise from 20% to 24% for higher rate taxpayers, and that's come into effect, as of the budget last week. A couple of other sort of small changes to capital gains tax. That is, carried interest is going to go up to 32%, and with further reform expected from April 2026. And there were some reforms to sort of business asset disposal relief, which used to be called entrepreneurs relief, and that has gone that's going up to 14% in April 2025 and 18% from April 2026. Now, alongside those domestic reforms, I think one of the biggest things that we were expecting or hoping for and got was some clarification on the non-dom reforms that's coming into play in the UK. We now have the draft legislation on that, so there'll be lots of people poring over that over the weeks and months to come. But as a headline, the government are going to be shifting from the remittance basis of taxation in the UK, which meant non-UK domiciles could exempt their overseas income and gains for up to 15 years, to a new residence-based regime. And essentially that residence-based regime is going to be, if you're non-resident for 10 years in the UK, you can access the new FIG regime, foreign income and gains, and that's going to apply for 4 years. So it's really cutting down that time from 15 years down to 4 years that people will qualify. There was also some clarifications on the overseas workday relief rules. One of those is that it will go up from 3 years to 4 years. So that's a bit of good news for expats arriving in the UK. However, one of the changes we weren't expecting and we did get is this is now going to be capped at 300k per annum. So certainly for those higher earners that are currently claiming uncapped overseas workday relief, that could really limit the amount of relief that they can claim.
So a lot of stuff going on there, but I'm guessing that the key takeaway from all this is just to know that things are changing and you need to speak to your advisor at Rialto Partners or wherever you get your tax advice from, but significant changes. So a lot of things going on there. We're going to move on because we've just got such a jam-packed show today, but there's just so much there to talk about. It is, as you said, the most significant budget from an expat perspective, probably in living memory. So everybody out there just needs to be aware that the changes are absolutely massive. We're now going to bring onto stage Matt Cheek to give a Benevo update, but Matt is actually based in Valencia. So he's also going to be telling us a bit about what's been happening and the tragic events in Spain. So everybody, please hit the heart button, hit the like button, hit the applause button. Say a big thank you to Ben Vanden Dungan from Rialto Partners and to Julie Barron from Rialto Partners. And let's welcome to our stage, Matthew Cheek. Hi, Matt.
Hello, Ryan.
Hi. We'll get onto the Benevo stuff in a moment, and I know you're going to be talking about the top 100 women leaders list and other stuff. But just start off. I mean, we're in the human business. Just tell us about events in Valencia and elsewhere in Spain.
Yeah, absolutely. So I live in Valencia, Spain, and as some of you may have seen on the news last week, there was quite a dramatic and very sad and terrible event that took place here last week. There was a year's worth of rainfall within a 10-hour period of time in a very small geographic area that produced horrible flooding, the worst flooding that this city and region has seen since the 1950s. At first, really a shocking and quite tragic event. Sadly, a number of people did lose their lives, and a gigantic section of the town has been damaged horrifically. It's going to take a very, very long time to repair it. However, over the last 5 days, there have also been some inspiring things on the community side. There was an incredible civic organization here of volunteers who have gone into the affected areas to help people with access to food and water. Some really incredible stories of people narrowly escaping the floodwaters with their lives, and a lot of community engagement to kind of fill in the immediate support gap that maybe could have been better managed by the authorities, some may say. Thankfully, in the last 5 days, the authorities have stepped in, the Army and a number of other services, and I think we can now safely say that repair is underway in Valencia. And there was also a concern that as more days went on, the death toll would continue to rise because it was such a quick and sudden event that there was a lot of fear that there was actually a lot of people that had not yet been discovered. So far, that has not actually turned out to be true. So people were really fearing that it was going to get even worse. Those fears have alleviated over the last couple of days, and now the city is into full recovery mode. But for all of you out there, please send your best wishes to the people of Valencia. They have had a very, very hard time over the last week.
And you and your family all?
We were thankfully on the town was basically divided in half in terms of those affected and those not, as per who is on the high side of where the water flowed. And we were on, just by chance and luck, the unaffected side. So thankfully we were not, but many, many people were.
Well, thank you for that. And obviously our thoughts and prayers go out to everybody affected in your city, in Valencia. So Indeed. Tell us also a bit about some of the Benevo stuff you were going to tell us about today.
Yeah, let's do it. I have a couple things queued up on the screen. We have the first thing is happening in London tomorrow. For all of the global mobility professionals who are going to be in London, the Global Mobility Executive event is happening. And if you would like to immediately get more of Julia Onslow-Cole, you can see her live in person at the GME event tomorrow, in addition to the Benevo team, who is going to be also presenting on a schedule that I will find in the afternoon. Nitsan Yudan presenting together with Alexandra Oeda at Pearson. Nitsan is the CEO of Benevo. So if you are attending that event or were considering it, please do, and please check out our session. I also wanted to point out that we have what is increasingly becoming a very popular new white paper available for download from the Benevo client advisory teams. It is looking at the true cost of unsupported moves and relocation, and it is a very large number. So you can learn more about that and how programs can reduce that number and provide better solutions to the segments of the population in the company footprint that are often doing moves on a completely unsupported basis. And finally, per the trailer that you have just seen on the show, I wanted to encourage everyone to please cast your nominations for the top 100 women leaders in global mobility. We have one more week to submit nominations, and you can do so easily by going to the Benevo website and casting your nomination for the top for a top 100 woman leader in global mobility in your experience. So a great opportunity to give recognition to your team who is doing good work, or to nominate a colleague or a friend who you know has had a good impact in the industry.
Okay, so a lot going on at the moment. We need to move on, and I'm super excited. We're now going to be talking to two individuals who have set up their own businesses. They've left the corporate rat race and they've started on their own. And I'm so excited. Backstage, we got Robert Brezosky and Jeremy Chandar. So everybody, you know how it works. Please hit the heart button, hit the like button, hit the applause button. Let's say a big thank you and indeed send our prayers to Matthew Cheek and his family in Valencia, and welcome Jeremy and Robert onto our stage. Robert, Jeremy, I am honored to have you on the show. Two young entrepreneurs who've started or moved into their own businesses, and they're quite young businesses. So if I just start off with you, Robert, I think you've got the baby. How long ago was it that you got started with Quest?
Yeah, just January of this year, so not even through a full 1 year cycle yet.
Okay, and Jeremy, you're a bit older. So how long have you been running Pinewood?
We are just reaching the terrible twos. 25 months.
Okay, so you're both sort of in the early stages. We carry on that baby analogy. You're sort of just about learning to walk. You're sort of you're new as entrepreneurs, but you're both experienced mobility professionals. So, Robert, just tell us a bit about your background. What did you do before Quest?
Sure. So I spent the majority of my career in HR in various different areas of HR, not always mobility, contrary to popular belief. I was leader of business partners for a while, a recruiting leader, early career development programs, but global mobility has always been my sweet spot. And I've worked at 3 large companies over the course of the last 30 years, which were PwC, the Walt Disney Company, and Netflix.
Okay, and I think I saw your colleague Eluna posted a shout out to you, so I know she's in the audience, and a shout out from us to her too. Always good to see Eluna in the audience. So okay, so Robert, so you are on the corporate side running relocation at Disney and at Netflix. So understand that. So Jeremy, how did you get into? What did you do before Pinewood? What was your background?
Yeah, I've worked for 3 decades in the relocation industry, and I've worked for some of the best moving and relocation companies in the world. And I just thought, I'm getting older. It's time I started something, because somebody said to me, when are you retiring? And I said, no, I'm not ready.
Yeah. So, because you're both, how do I put this? You didn't start businesses in your 20s. You're both can I say your age?
Sure.
You're both in your 50s. Anyway, I think that's fair to say. So you sort of started on. You'd had big corporate roles, and and I suppose the safety of being an employee. What was it like? Was it scary when you sort of moved from saying, actually, I'm going to give up my safe job, my steady wage, all the benefits of being with a significant employer, and I'm just going to go out and do it on my own? I mean, Jeremy, how scary was that?
Terrifying. And I had to revert to CBD just to be sure that I could get through the next few years. In terms of moving from a regular paid salary to bootstrapping, that was quite something. But my wife and I were in this together, and I guess after so many years of working in the industry, I kept having this ambition. I know that we can do something, and that's what got us started.
Okay, and Robert, what about from your perspective? I mean,
yes,
did you spend a long time thinking about it? Was it a dream? How did it all come about?
No, I mean, my story is pretty unconventional. So I left Netflix in February of 2023. And my plan was to continue to pursue the types of jobs that I've always had. And so I had jotted down all of the things that I wanted in my next HR leadership role. It was very specific and clear, and tried to manifest every morning the next dream job that I would have. And as time went by, I started to realize, and I started to look at jobs that were available. I started to realize there wasn't really anything that I could get excited about that I was seeing. And the longer I wasn't working, and the longer I was kind of reading through job descriptions and not having the ideal reaction to them that I would have wanted to have, the more I started to open my mind to other things. And the more I thought, okay, this is going to take longer than you think to find your next position. It was also 2023, so not the best time to be looking for a job in the US as a senior leader in HR. And so I thought, let me do some consulting for a little while, and so that I don't get rusty, and so that I have some income coming in. And I started making calls, and one of the first people I called was the owner of Quest Relocation Group, which is the company I ended up buying, Barbara Blake. And I said, hey, Barb, I can help you with all of these different projects at Quest. I can even run the company for you if you want to take a much needed career break until I find another job. And she said, well, to tell you the truth, Robert, Diana and I would like to sell. And I said, without even thinking, maybe I would like to buy it. And that's how the conversation started. And so it was absolutely scary, because it was not something that I was planning on at all. But I was having a really big heart and body reaction to the idea of buying this company that I wasn't having to going on to continuing doing what I was doing.
Okay, so I mean, that's quite an interesting, and as you said, unique situation. So you ended up effectively buying one of your vendors from your corporate life, which I'm not sure if anyone's ever done that before. If anybody out there in the audience knows anybody else who's bought one of their vendors, then give it a shout out. And also out in the audience, if you've got questions for Robert and Jeremy about how they actually did it, how they got their name above the door, the virtual door these days, and they moved from the corporate role, do write in the comments box and ask us the question. So Jeremy, your story is slightly different, because you didn't buy into a vendor. You decided you were just going to do it by yourself. And actually, quick question for you. Why Pinewood? Where does that name come from?
I'm not far from Pinewood Studios, and it's really important that we honor the environment, and it made it so much easier to create a brand. And when I was looking, there were 4,500 removal companies in the UK, 1,000 relocation companies, and every single one of them saying that they do something completely different. But when we break it down at the very core, a mover is a mover. They have trucks, diesel, rubber tires, cardboard boxes. A relocation company finds properties and schools. And I just thought, now there's got to be way more to this than just that. And how do we create a difference? And I remember coming to speak to people like yourself, Brian, to say, how do I get this going? Because it's an oversaturated market as it is, and the UK is so small compared to the United States. And I thought, well, how on earth do we get going? And I do have some anecdotes to share later on, if you're wanting to hear them, about things like even setting up a bank account or registering a business.
I want to get into some of those points. Let's do a couple of that now. I mean, what are those pre-launch issues that sort of, because people think, oh yeah, I'm going to set up a business. And Robert, your business existed, but your business didn't exist, Jeremy. So let's just focus on that for a moment. What were the things you had to do just to get yourself in the game?
Yeah, well, I was lucky that I'd worked for some great companies, and we did a lot of research into the market. What are our competitors talking about? What are we saying? What's our language? Does the color of the brand even match the style of the service that's being presented? So we had a long way to go. So I had all this, and I'd started businesses within businesses that weren't existing. And I kept thinking, what can we do differently? And there was space, and creating that brand, aiming at a target audience that hasn't been touched or not very well. And it was, how can we do this? I hope I've answered that.
Yeah, no, that's
sufficiently well.
That's good. And I'll bring Robert. I'll bring Robert a bit into this bit of the conversation, because Robert, you started that you bought into that business, Quest Relocation. What was going through your mind on sort of day one as you sort of, you go in there and all of a sudden, you are the owner, and you've got employees there, haven't you? I mean, it's not just you on your own. So what was going through your mind on day one?
The process of buying the business took some time, so I had a lot of time to sort of think about what it was that I needed to do on day one. And because I have such a great relationship with the prior owners, I was able to quietly sort of get in the door a couple of months before we closed on the deal and start working for Quest as a consultant, and start looking under the hood a little bit and sort of understanding what it was that I needed to do to prioritize. But I still have, in year one, I had an Excel spreadsheet broken out into different tabs. What are the things that we need to do prior to close? What are the things we need to do within the first 30 days, 90 days, et cetera? Because even buying an existing business, there was so much to think about and so much to try to keep organized and stay and keep on point. I think it took me 3 weeks just to get access to our bank account after we closed on the deal. Unfortunately, we had an accounting person who still had her access, but little things like that were a big drain just the first month, just all the logistical things to try to deal with.
Yeah, I remember when I started my business, Form for Expatriate Management, many years ago, it was things like there's no tech department anymore. That, if you need new whatever printer ink or something, you've got to go and find the local store to get it. Or if something's wrong, you've got to, there's no support. I mean, did you find that, Jeremy, that you sort of moving, when you're starting a business from scratch, just lack of support that you're used to?
Oh, absolutely. I just didn't find that there was any support from even the government to help a business to get going. Nobody with good, clear advice or a drive or a passion to share how it should be done. We started to book business before we even had a bank account open, and that was terrifying. And when you think about all the compliance issues that we have to go through in mobility, we were doing things back to front, and it was a real learning experience, and we're still learning. We learn massively through the mistakes that we make.
Yeah, I mean, those early days are quite scary, but also there must be a buzz about them. So tell us about, if you like, the excitement of starting your own business. Yeah, Jeremy, do you want to kick off on that, and then I'll bring Robert in?
Yeah, sure. For us, it was like going out to buy a brand new puppy, and I know Robert's got a lovely dog, but going out to buy a puppy, and there's that excitement. And for this first 6 or 7 months, that's all you think about is that puppy or a baby or whatever it might be. And then the puppy starts to grow, and then it starts teething and it starts ripping up the carpets and the sofas and the doors and thinking, now how do I control this? Because it is all consuming, and you live, eat, breathe, sleep the business. And you're wanting everybody to have the same passion, but it's not possible because you have to build trust. Even though people might have known me for years, they didn't know the business. And so you start all over again, totally fresh.
So I'm guessing that starting your own business is not an easy option. I mean, Robert, just from your perspective, do you work harder now than you used to?
No, I always worked like it was my business. I don't necessarily, people used to tell me that, but it was the only thing I knew. And so, if I was the leader of a corporate mobility team, it was my functional area, and I treated it like they were my own people and my own company. And so I don't really work harder. I think maybe I think about it a little bit more around the clock than I used to. And I think that I'm having a lot more fun because I can really just kind of do my own thing now, and I can action things so much more quickly. I usually say to people, it used to be that I would come up with a good idea and I would have to go around the company and talk about it for a few months and get other people on board. And by the time I was able to do it, I wasn't excited about it anymore. And now, as long as we have the money to do what it is that I would like to do, we can do it. If I look at our website and I think, oh, we really need a page on inclusion and diversity, or, I think we need to spruce this up over here, it's done in a few days. And that is the most gratifying, exciting thing for me, because I got really good at sort of navigating the bureaucracy of a large organization. And I got immune to, I don't even think I realized how draining it was at times, because now that it's not there, I feel like the cuffs have been taken off and I can just flourish and have fun and make progress, like at a pace that I've never been able to make progress at before.
Okay, and a question that's come in from Tamara, she addressed it to Robert, but actually I'll address it to both of you, is what's been your biggest learning in the past year, or in your case, Jeremy, two years since you started business? What's been your biggest learning of actually doing it?
Who did you, starting with me?
Yeah, I'll start with you, Robert.
To calm down and recognize everything's going to be okay and listen to what my heart is telling me and not what my busy mind is telling me. That's been it.
Okay, and Jeremy, what's been your biggest learning?
Yeah, I think I'd echo exactly what Robert's just said. It's definitely learning to cope with it. And we've certainly been going through a very tough mobility market. There's wars and rumors of wars in so many countries. It's made it so much more complicated. And it's how do we navigate that? And a lot of our clients are looking for work. And what I've learned is, no, I know it's a cliche, but no man is an island or no woman is an island. We need our network. It's the people in our industry that help support us, and they do a great job of it. And there are people online today that I can call and there's a shoulder to cry on when I need one.
Yeah, but it is a tough market out there. And, you know, in your previous roles, you know, you had a bit of latitude, dare I say it, that if it was a bit quiet, okay, there's always the risk that, there can be terminations, but generally as a rule, if there's a bit of latitude. Whereas when you're running your own business, you've got bills to pay, you know, every week, whether they're sort of salary bills or they're utility bills or whatever other bills, rent bills or whatever. You've got bills to pay. What do you do? And I'll start with you, Jeremy. What do you do on that awful day when the phone doesn't ring?
Yeah, I've been lucky in my career, fortunate in my career, that I've been in sales. And so you're generally given a phone, a laptop, and the support of the business, but there is no business. You've got to go and find it. And you're almost like one of those truffling pigs or dogs trying to find one little nugget here and there. And then it comes in and it's slow. And when it's slow, sometimes I've got to phone my friend Michael or Paul, who are on the line today, and say, can you just call to make sure my line's still working? The website hasn't gone down, and it does take time.
Oh, yeah, paranoia comes in. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. But wasn't it the former CEO of Intel who said paranoia is good, it keeps us motivated. And only
I think it was, and I think he wrote a book. Yeah, Only the Paranoid Survive. Yeah, absolutely. But Robert, what about from your point of view? You know, those days when the phone doesn't ring. I mean, tell us about those days, and indeed, I suppose, sleepless nights.
Yeah, I think well, first of all, that's the scariest part, and that's the hardest adjustment. I think when things are difficult in the company that you're working for, unless you're about to lose your job, your paycheck is going to continue to come in, and you don't have the stress of paying other people and paying, a business's bills in addition to your own bills. And so that's been a hard thing to get adjusted to. But in those moments, I try to focus on the longer term aspects of where the business is going. And I know that we will, in the long haul, we're going to grow and we're going to be hugely successful. And I know that there's going to be ups and downs along the way. And I know that anything worth having comes through hard work. My whole life has been like that. And so if I bought the business and everything was easy from day one, the wins wouldn't feel as good. So I try to look at it that way. And I would say, unlike Jeremy, the one thing when I bought this company that I really didn't have a clue how to do was business development. I never really had to do that in my other roles. Everything else I've had some kind of experience with. And so I had a lot of really, going back to what Jeremy said about the wonderful people in this industry, so many people have just been kind of willing to show me how to focus on getting new business in a way that, that's comfortable for me, where I can be, my authentic self and I can enjoy the journey and not feel like, I'm the kind of pushy salesperson that I didn't like when I was on the other side. And so that's been a bit of I wouldn't even say I'm good at it today, but I'm trying to learn how and have fun doing it. And I would say I'm better than I was a few months ago at it.
Absolutely, and no doubt you'll be, you're way better than you were, and you'll be way better still. It's always a continuous improvement, continuous learning. But I want to pick up on a point that Scott Enoch said, which I'm guessing was actually slightly tongue in cheek. I mean, he said, "Don't leave the corporate side, folks." And I appreciate we have concentrated a bit on the negative of what you do when the phone doesn't ring. But let's turn it around. I'm guessing you guys do not regret for a moment the fact that you've started your own businesses. So tell us about the plus sides. Tell us about what you love about running your own businesses, and the whatever aspects it is, and tell us a bit about that. Jeremy, tell us about your love for being your own boss.
Oh my goodness, I don't think there's a career that's greater than that of a salesperson. When a piece of business comes in, I don't think there's any other job where you feel that sense of joy and elation. And when I've worked with people like Scott Enoch, who's absolutely amazing, but when these people come through for you and it works, and you think, I am never going back. This is it. This is the legacy we want to leave behind for our children. And our daughters really help support us in the business. One's 27, the other one's 23, so they're older. But when you look at what can be achieved, it is stimulating, because you're master of your own destiny. And when Mark Dirksen or Chris Monticelli came through for us right at the very start, thinking, wow, they trust us. There's no feeling like it.
Yeah, I mean, interesting comment here from Michael Hughes. He throws a quote. He says, "At first it's scary and then it's fun." I mean, tell us about that from your perspective, Robert. Tell us about the fun aspects of running your own business.
I think I'd have to echo a lot of the things that Jeremy said, and I won't repeat them. But what I would also add is that I would have described myself as someone who knew himself very well. And I didn't really realize that I had this entrepreneurial spirit in me until, maybe a year or a year and a half ago. And now that I'm in it, it's very clear that it was always what I was supposed to be doing. It would have been, the career journeys happen the way they happen for a reason. And I have, a lot more knowledge and wisdom than I had 25 years ago. So I'm probably in a better position to be running my own business now than I was then. But this feels very natural to me. And to use, one thing I would say that Jeremy didn't mention is this is the first job I've ever had where I get to use all parts of my brain every single day. So 1 minute I'm being analytical, 1 minute I'm working on marketing, another minute I'm working on business development. I can be creative, I can be a strategist thinking about the future or thinking about growth. And it's kind of, my brain is always firing on all cylinders, and it feels
and then another minute you're probably changing a light bulb.
Yeah, because there's no one to do it, right?
Absolutely.
Sweeping the floors. Yeah. And so it's, I don't know, I think most entrepreneurs say, it would be very difficult to go back and work in a traditional environment. And I have to agree with that.
Okay. So you guys have both started your own businesses. And Jeremy, you made the point that there are hundreds or thousands of relo companies and moving companies and DSP companies out there. It's a crowded market. So how did you work out what your USP was going to be? What makes you stand out from the crowd? What is it that's special about Pinewood Relocation, and how do you decide what it was going to be, that specialization that you had?
Yes, good question. For us, it was looking at the shrinking market, looking at the number of relocation management companies, looking at each of those large providers and saying, well, who's servicing the needs of clients who have 1 to 50 moves a year, and looking after them and making them feel special. Then a great client called, great organization called Miam, which is a law firm, they came along and said, would you look after our high net worth and ultra high net worth clients? So we look after their whole ultra high net worth clients, and they have a very different need to, say, the corporate mobility sector, where often it's about price, often it's about ensuring that there's consistency of quality, and that we could do it in a very uniform way. But for individuals who are spending big money, they want something extraordinary. And the kinds of people that we went to weren't the people who advertise, so that they have
so
something.
your niche is, you're trying to focus on the high end,
yeah.
the white glove market. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And Robert, from your point of view, I mean, obviously you've got relationships with big corporate clients from your early days, and that's how you got involved with Quest. But what's your market positioning? Where do you want Quest to be?
It's funny, Brian, you went exactly where I was going to go, which is, so when I was working for the Walt Disney Company, a few weeks after I got there, I would walk into a meeting room and I would meet somebody who would tell me they just relocated from Ohio or something. And I would say, "Oh, my team must have moved you. How did we do?" And they would say, "These ladies from Quest, I couldn't have done it without them. They were phenomenal." And so I couldn't wait to meet the ladies from Quest. And so when I got to know them, it became clear that they had built a very unique kind of organization that was very people focused. They took very good care of their own people and treated them like family. And their team then in turn treated the people that they supported in the same way. And their clients, our clients, felt it and feel it. And when I got to Netflix shortly thereafter, it became very clear that we needed Quest in our program ASAP. So I brought Quest over then. But the interesting thing is that I've called, when Barb and Diane owned Quest, I used to say it was the mobility industry's best kept secret. And I always, I'd always try to get them to go out into the world a little bit more and market their services and show what Quest was all about. They didn't really have a desire to do that. That just wasn't their thing, which is fine. But it's been the most fun and rewarding part of this whole thing has been for me to think about, how do I show the world who Quest is? How do I take this thing and show it to the mobility industry and other professionals in a way that will truly resonate and show them who we are? And when I was at ERC a couple of weeks ago, a lot of people, including people who I don't know, came up to me and said, "I love what you're doing. I see who your company is. You're doing a great job. Keep it up." So I was thinking, all right, we're on the right track with how we're trying to market ourselves and explain who we are.
Well, I'm sincerely hoping that being on this show gives you both a little bit of oxygen of publicity, so that when you're out at events, people say, "Oh yes, I know Quest, I know Pinewood. We saw you on The View from the Top," or maybe even if we're lucky for you, that an email will ping in or the phone will ring or something, and someone's we've put you on somebody's radar. So I mean, tell us, what's the future? I mean, you've been growing a business, and I would say, if a business isn't growing, it's shrinking. You've got to keep growing. But what does the future hold? Where do you think your business will be? I'll start with you, Jeremy, in say 5 years' time.
In 5 years' time, we will still be going. Our daughters will have taken the business over, and that's going to be our legacy. That was what we hoped to do all along. That's why we've put our life savings into this. And I want to say something about the late, great Dave Grable and something that he said, but maybe later on when you're ready.
No, go for it now, because we've only got 6 minutes left.
Forget how I've written it down because it's such a good mantra. Forget about how many competitors you have out there. You don't get any business from competitors. The only competitor you have to overcome is your own inclination to quit, compromise, or to tolerate. What a great man.
Really, really powerful, as you say, from a great man. So Jeremy, because you actually do something unique. We haven't really had a chance to do it, but to talk about it. But you're in business with your wife. So how do you switch off, or do you sort of talk about work 24/7, 365?
Oh, I would. I'm just very fortunate that I'm married to a great person who is my exact opposite. So she knows how long to keep me talking for and when to shut me down. And generally that's a glass of rosé. And then I know it's time to stop talking about it, because it is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it's not for everyone. And also, I'm a preacher, so at least that allows me to come up for oxygen every now and then.
Okay, and Robert, just looking at it from your perspective, what's your 5-year plan? Where do you want to be, or where do you want the business to be in 5 years' time? If you're on The View from the Top, you're a celebrity. Absolutely. We'll make, hopefully, if you weren't famous before, which you were, we're going to make you more famous. But Robert, tell us, what's your vision, your 5-year vision?
Well, first I have to say that I'm jealous of Jeremy that it's already just about rosé time there, because it's only 5 minutes to 9 here in California. So I've got a long way to go. However, this is a question that I get asked a lot, and it's my goal to grow the company within the U.S., at least first, within the markets we're already in, and then to other strategic markets in the U.S. We do not have aspirations to be a national or global DSP provider, because we would like to continue to be hyper local and hyper high touch in the areas that we serve. And so that's the plan.
Okay, we're getting towards the end of the show, but Jeremy, what advice would you give anybody thinking about starting their own business today? And I know there are people out there, probably people watching this show, who are busy either making plans or dreaming of making plans.
I think Scott highlighted something really important earlier on about staying in the corporate market. And I saw your post as well with the voting that you put up. A lot of people think about it. It is much easier to receive a regular monthly salary, a pension scheme, a health scheme, and so on, and knowing where the next salary will come from. Do it if you have deep pockets. And I looked, and there's 13 types of entrepreneurs. There's the bootstrap, which is what we are. Every time we have our own money, we reinvest it into the business, and that builds the company. But if you're not prepared to accept those quiet times, then don't do it. Because even just getting something like the insurance, there was no checklist for a relocation company. And anybody who wants to join the Association of Relocation Professionals in the UK is doing the right thing. Same with Euro, because our industry needs validation and it needs recognition from government level, and it's not recognized. Even getting things like certain certificates, it's as estate agents, but not as relocation professionals. And so we need much more validation. But that goes back to starting a business in this industry. Be patient, have a deep pocket, and there's no investors, because if you've got a vision, the investors don't have to buy in to that vision. And that's where we've come from.
Okay, and I'll leave the last word to you, Robert. I mean, in my experience, when you start a business, the people you know fall into two categories. There's the people who are the supporters, and the people who are the doubters. I mean, did you find that, and how did you sort of manage to sort of avoid the one and find the other?
I didn't find any doubters, believe it or not. I know that's a strange answer, but this felt very right to me. The biggest doubter was my own head in the moments where I was starting to, to just think about the things that I was giving up, the types of things that Jeremy mentioned, that kind of security. But when I would tell people what I was doing, my former bosses, people in the industry, people not in the industry, my partner's, mother who is not an optimist, the answer was always, you will be successful. This is exactly what you're supposed to be doing. Go for it. And so that's been one of the things that's kind of, gotten me through my own moments of personal doubt, is knowing that everybody else believes as much as I do inside that I'm where I'm supposed to be and that I'm doing the right thing.
Okay, so I'm going to be bringing the others on stage now. We are out of time, but let's bring Julie Barron on, Julie Onslow Cole, Ben van den Dungen, Matthew Cheek, and of course our wonderful producer, Tally Goran. It has been an honor having you guys all join us today, all of you, especially to Robert and Jeremy. I think what you're doing is remarkable. It does take a particular sort of person to say, you're going to take that gamble, set up your own business. So kudos to you. I know the other guests, and hopefully everybody in the industry wishes you all the best as you build your companies. This is an industry that, yes, we compete, but we're also great friends, and we are all very, very supportive of you. We wish you all the best. We are back this time next week with The View from the Top, when we're going to be talking about project mobility and an end-to-end solution. Meanwhile, all that it really remains for me to do is to say thank you to all our wonderful guests. Thank you especially to Tally for your support backstage. But above all, thank you to everybody in the audience who have been watching us and hopefully enjoying the show. Take care, everybody, and have a great, great week. Bye.